Today on Mike Attempts, fixing electric pressure washers. A recent divorcee gave me a bunch of broken tools after cleaning out her garage, which included these two pressure washers. We've got a Greenworks 51012 and a Husky 1800. The Greenworks power cord has been partially chewed through by mice, and the hose has been munched in half. So far, the only obvious thing I see with the Husky is that the hose I got with it isn't able to connect to the gun. Let's start with the Greenworks. If you don't get all of the water out before winter, it could freeze and crack the pump. No leaks. We're off to a good start. It powers on, and the pump appears to be working, but I have no way to test the pressure. This is not a standard hose. It connects to the reel, and the replacement part has been discontinued, so we'll have to come up with a workaround. That's definitely not a good sign. The bottom is covered with oil. This is the high pressure line coming from the reel. And after disconnecting the soap dispenser hose, I can remove the top section. With the U-pin removed, I was able to pull out the hose end. This hose connector isn't standard, so I removed another U-pin in order to release the fitting. This is a standard connection. I think we can work with it. Luckily, the only power cord damage is close to the machine, so I can just cut it and reconnect the wires at the switch. It's at least 10 miles long, so no one will notice. I'm going to remove the motor for better access and clean off the oil. Obviously, it's concentrated at the bottom, but I can't tell where it's coming from. I found this broken O-ring under the pump, and because of the size, I can only assume it was a capacitor seal to keep water out of the electronics. I made sure all the bolts were tight, cleaned up the oil, and I don't see any new drips forming. I disconnected the wires, stripped and crimped on new terminals, and applied heat shrink. I found a replacement seal in my stash of O-rings that's close enough. I ordered a pump outlet adapter that I'm hoping will fit. With some minor modifications, I think we can make it work. I used a Dremel cutoff wheel to remove the plastic post. And then a razor to cut an access hole. I lube the hole and O-ring with some silicone grease. Make sure the grooves are oriented horizontally. Pop it in and insert the U-pin. I also picked up a cheap universal hose. For a literal hack job, I think it looks alright. It's back together. Let's test it out. It's working, but the pressure seems weak. And the pump stops, but the motor is still humming. If it hums like that for too long, it trips the breaker. When the trigger is released on the gun, the pressure spikes, causing a pin to pop up and turn off the motor. The switch is currently in the on position, so there should be continuity between the terminals. Yep. In the off position, there shouldn't be continuity. And there isn't, so the switch is fine. The valve seems to be in working order. There's another O-ring down inside. I cleaned and greased the parts, then put everything back together. The narrow groove is for the O-ring, the wider one is for the pin. I used a plastic pipe to compress the spring so I could insert the U-pin. The pin goes up, but it doesn't stay up. There must be an internal leak in the pump. I removed the 4 bolts securing the pump to the motor. Well, it is oil, not chocolate milk. Most actually made it into the pan. I couldn't find any damaged O-rings or blown seals in the pump. I think it's just worn out. My guess is that electric pressure washers like this are meant to be replaced, because I was unable to find a rebuild kit for the pump. So I cleaned, lubed, and reassembled the pump. This angled plate rotates, causing each of the 3 pistons to pump and create pressure. I added 30 weight non-detergent oil until it reached the bearing. I applied a thin layer of RTV gasket maker to the O-ring oil seal. And incrementally tightened the bolts to compress the springs evenly. Things were looking good, at first. Then the pressure started dropping again, preventing the motor from turning off. At this point, I don't think there's much else I can do. So why did I include this failure in the video? Well, these projects don't always work out, and in my opinion, it wasn't a complete failure. I still learned a lot, and the repairs I made might help someone else. Maybe we'll have better luck with the Husky. At first, it appeared to be leak-free. But after sitting for a few minutes with the hose connected, it's leaking from the soap dispenser selection knob. I wasn't able to test the motor because the plug is doing this. All the screws were Phillips, except one. I don't use this security bit set often, but it sure is nice to have. I pried it open and clipped the wires. After looking things over, I found that one of the capacitor leads is no longer connected. In order to test the motor and pump, I soldered the wires directly to their terminals. This is only temporary since the ground fault safety has now been deleted. The pump is working, but the motor won't turn off on this one either. Let's crack it open. The switch is in the on position, and we have continuity. When switched off, we don't. The switch is good. When the pressure spikes inside the pump, it pulls in the arm, which turns off the switch. While testing, I noticed this valve was leaking. Not only was this causing water to backflow into the dispenser containers, it was also allowing pressure to bleed off. It's just a ball bearing and an O-ring. I got lucky and found a bearing that fit. When a high pressure spray tip is used, the ball is pressed tight against the O-ring to create a seal. When using the dispenser tip, the pressure is low enough to siphon soap from the container. Now back to the switch. With the U-pin removed, the unloader valve should pop right out, but I couldn't get it to budge. The rod is supposed to move back and forth, but this one's pretty tight. I tried prying against the spring, but that didn't work either. So I figured I could tap it out with a rubber mallet. And in no time at all, I ruined it. It was a fight, but I eventually got the rest out. While waiting on a replacement, I figured I'd use the Greenworks plug to fix the Husky. I stripped the wires, tinned the tips, and connected them to the plug. Let's try it out. Works! I wasn't able to find an exact replacement, so I took a gamble on a universal unloader valve. They're different, but hopefully similar enough to work. The first thing I need to do is cut down the rod so it'll fit. By cutting it with the nut on, the threads shouldn't require any cleanup. The new unloader valve has a spring-loaded tip and the rod slides smoothly. I reused the spring from the original. I used a chopstick to help seat the valve. Even using the thinner original washer, the U-pin still wouldn't fit. Everything I tried was still too big. A couple of brad nails ended up doing the trick, and I was able to put it back together. The bottom nut sets the pressure. As the spring compresses, the pressure increases. But without a pressure gauge, I just had to make an educated guess. I slowly adjusted the top screw until I heard the switch turn off. Then I backed the screw out just a hair before tightening the nut. The pump is turning off, but the motor is still humming. After adjusting the pressure and fine-tuning the top screw a little more, I got it just right. I used some high-temp hot glue to hold everything in place, reassembled, and shined it up. The plan is to return it to the original owner as a thank you for everything she gave me. Feel free to rate this video, add your comments and questions below, and subscribe for more.